Everyone, welcome back to the stage, Riley Clemmons.
Thanks, guys.
All right, so we just watched, of course, a video about your new album that just came out, Church Pews. So we want to ask about identity. That's something you hit about quite a bit there, and where you found yours. So what is your advice to someone who is currently searching for their identity in Christ?
Man, that's a good question, and I really wish I had all the answers, because if I did, I would be using them. You know, I think that it's interesting. If I'm learning anything, I grew up in a Christian household. I always knew about Jesus. I always knew about God. I think that there is this pivotal moment in your walk with the Lord where you have to choose faith for yourself. And for me, I've experienced it as an ongoing thing, right? So I've chosen Jesus for myself a dozen times, but I think it's about making that choice over and over again, every single day, surrendering, every single day, choosing to trust that God gives us identity and purpose that the world cannot. And the birthplace of Church Pew, the record as a whole, specifically the song Loved by You, was coming out of a season where the honest to goodness truth is I put every bit of self-worth and value that I thought I may or may not have had into whatever the world said about me, to how many likes or claps or to how I was charting, and it left me in shambles. I was at the lowest place I'd ever been in my life, and I think it's in those moments where the personal faith kicks in, and I knew I had to ask myself the question, what is faith for if it is not for these moments? Where you have to look in the mirror and say, Riley, who are you? Because God knows you have to be something more than likes or a single song or a number on a chart. There has to be more. Yeah.
Wow, that's so beautiful. And I feel like we can all relate to placing our identity in something that's changing. And in the world, things are always changing, but in God, He's unchanging. So that's so beautiful. Thank you so much for that. And so for social media, we know that you took some time off of social media. So what prompted you to take that leave? And what effects did you notice getting off of Instagram and all of the different platforms?
Oh man, I am such a better person when I am off the social media, and that is the honest to goodness truth. Somebody in here better say amen, because I know it's true.
A lot agree.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would say, truthfully, I very much dislike social media. I'm very open about that. My whole team knows that. I don't like it. I'm not into it. And it's a great work tool, don't get me wrong. The best part about social media is getting to connect with the listener, getting to hear the personal stories, getting to have those moments. But I would say, as an overarching thing, social media has done a lot of really damaging things to our culture and our brains. And so the biggest thing, the nicest thing, one of the biggest and nicest things I've ever done for myself is given myself healthier boundaries with my phone. And figuring out how to put it down and stop looking and scrolling, because it's dangerous, it's bad for your brain. It gets you into this comparison cycle where you're constantly measuring your life up to this enhanced reality of others. And so, yeah, I mean, I would recommend to everybody and their third cousin to get off your phone and have those boundaries with social media. However, you can't take us to church. I know, we're preaching today. No, I would really say though, social media boundaries are good. Yeah.
Screen time.
Oof, yes.
So you mentioned earlier that you've grown up in the church and how important it is for us to take that step to make faith all our own. Not our parents' faith, not the faith of the church we go to, but our faith, a faith beyond imitation. Mm-hmm. How do you recommend someone take that step to find their faith?
You know, I think that's a really good question. I think the first step would be that knowledge and wisdom, the pursuit of those things, are the biggest superpower in taking that step. So it's hard to have a faith that is deeply personal. It's like trying to give a summary of a book that you've never read, right? You know, people can tell you how good the book is, and people can tell you how awesome it is, and oh yeah, that's my favorite book too. But I think it really makes a difference to actually be a student of the Word, be a student of people you look up to that are strong faith leaders. I think all of it is, I have found so much confidence in my personal faith with Jesus through educating myself and through being well equipped as a Christian, as a woman, as a person. And so, yeah, that's what I would recommend. If you want to take that step to feel like your faith isn't the hand-me-down faith of your parents, although that can be a beautiful thing to have that sort of heritage of faith in your family. It's not just your church's, it's not the faith that your church has given to you, but it's a faith that you have committed to yourself because you know and love Jesus. So just get in the Word, pray. It's easier said than done, I know, but it's the little things.
So growing up in the public eye and then pretty quickly jumping into kind of being really pushed out there with all of your music, how do you feel as though you have been able to develop your relationship with Christ while having a lot of eyes on you? Because it's hard enough, I mean, we can speak to this, like it's hard enough developing that relationship without all eyes on you. But when you're in that space, you're creating music and you're trying to portray your relationship with God, but also behind the scenes, working on that and building that up. How was that for you?
Oh, I mean, it's ebbs and flows, right? It's like any walk with Jesus. And like you said, just trying to do it publicly. It's like having different journals published into the world, and them being about faith adds a different level of personal to it. But honestly, I think I've learned to view it in a way that it's been this sort of kindredship that I have with the people who've been listening, especially the ones that were listening from the beginning when I was a scrappy 17-year-old who was mad one day that all of my journal entries were coming across as stubborn and a little angry at God, and wrote a song called Broken Prayers and had this song about it. And so that being said, I feel like it's been such an honor and privilege because I would say if there's anything I did well, I was honest to the phases that I was going through. And I showed up as 17-year-old Riley and didn't try to show up as a 30-year-old that I couldn't relate to. So for better or for worse, whether it made it less commercial or less this or that, I really did try to show up as I was. And I think that that's all we can do, right? And literally whatever job you have, whether you're a student, whether you are having the same job that you've had for the past 30 years, all you really can do is show up. And the harder part is showing up on the days you don't feel like it, and there were certainly a lot of those too.
So after talking with you tonight and listening to your music, we can tell that we put a lot of you in what you write. We just now talked about Broken Prayers and how that was your journal entries and the angry kid at God. Are there another one, because I know that all of them must have like that emotional impact, but another one that really helped communicate your process?
I mean, there's so many. I think that there are many throughout the past few years, but Church Pew, the new record, like I've been a student. I've been learning to write better songs. I've been learning to communicate my ideas better. The whole goal is to always grow and be a better artist, a better writer, a better version of myself. And so, that being said, this record, the stories on it, are a lot more authentic just because I've learned how to be. And I think one of the messier, heavier songs on the record is called This Side of Heaven. And it's a song that I wrote after losing my Aunt Cher to cancer. And I remember walking through that period of time trying to think of wanting to write a song to express how I was feeling, but every time I'd sit down to write it or try to talk about grief in a song, it came across as so messy. And for the longest time, it was, how do you cover that up? How do you tie it up with a bow? But for This Side of Heaven, the song on the record, we decided that it wasn't the kind of song you tie up with a bow, that sometimes faith and life coexist in ways that are uncomfortable and messy and heartbreaking and devastating. And so This Side of Heaven is one of the songs that pushed me as a songwriter to communicate pain in a way that didn't have a lot of resolve to it. And I know a lot of people, I heard a story about a sweet young girl named JJ. And there are so many stories that are full of that kind of heartbreak. And I think it's all the more important as Christians, as people who love Jesus, to be in heartbreak and to show up for all of it and to not try to hide it or sweep it under a rug. And so, I guess that's a passion on this new record.
Again, earlier when I was talking to your dad is so cool. Love
Yeah,
talking
he
to him.
is. Don't get a big head. He's gonna go home to mom and be like, I had the best day ever. Just kidding.
When I was talking to Dad, we were talking about how you walked in here earlier today and you were just this sunshine and rainbows and just like the most bubbly, vibrant person. And we were already expecting that because we saw your videos. We just thought you were walking sunshine. But the thing that I find so interesting is that in your music, you have such a powerful message that's just so well articulated, yet you bring so much joy and so much positivity so that people who are listening know that although there are trials, there's pain, there's obstacles, you can get through anything with God. And I feel like you portray that so well in your music, so thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Thanks for saying that. It means a lot to me. Thank you. I'm trying.
Yeah. So I do want to ask, looking ahead, what kind of impact do you hope that your music can bring to your listeners?
Oh, whoa. Whoa, that's a big question. Honestly, I'm trying to think of this big, grandiose thing to say, but I think the impact happens. I think God calls us to have impact one person at a time. You know, it is very much our culture to think this huge, massive, yes, I am going to do all of this, and I'm going to be a massive artist and fame and whatever. But I think at the end of the day, it's all, I think the prayer and the thing that I come back to and the thing that I have to look in the mirror and say, no, listen, Riley, this is why we're doing this, is for the individual, right? The one person who hears the song and smiles, or the one person who hears the song and feels less alone. Or the one person who hears the song and thinks, I don't know, maybe we'll look into the Jesus stuff a little. You know, it's all about the individual. That's what Jesus did. He left the 99 for the one, and I hope that we can continue to do that too as a Christian culture.
Well, Riley, you have been amazing, and we are so lucky to be able to have you here tonight. Not only did we have so much fun playing games with you, which we had a blast, and you absolutely killed it, and thank you for winning, because otherwise Matthew would have got a pretty big head from that. But
you are so welcome. It was my privilege. I mean it.
So
I really do. Thank you.
Well, we are looking forward to your performances coming up very soon, and thank you again so much. Your music is an inspiration on a way to really display learning how to develop a relationship with God. So thank you so much, and we're going to give you a quick break before we move on to your performance. Everyone, please give another round
Give it
of
up for Riley Clemmons!
Yeah.
Give it up for your host.